Acts chapter 8, when Philip joins the Ethiopian eunuch in between cities out there on the road, and he preaches Jesus to him. And then the Ethiopian eunuch say, "Hey, look, there's some water over here. What hinders me from being baptized?" And Philip said, "Well, if you believe with all your heart, you may." And so we're in the waters today on this. And I'm going to have Tyler give a little bit of his story to you today before we do the baptism.
Yeah, so I think when we first started coming to the church and Pastor Garry became pastor, it was right about the same time. Corey and I met with him and Lori, and first thing he asked us was, "Are you Christians?" And we said yes, and he said, "Well, how do you know?" And so my story was, when I was a junior in high school, my grandfather died after a 15-year battle with Parkinson's. And that whole time, he was never, outside of one heart attack, he was never in the hospital. My grandmother took care of him the whole time, through everything, couldn't feed himself, couldn't go to the bathroom himself. And at his funeral, that all kind of hit me, of the amount of love that she showed him, especially during those final years where he couldn't really do anything. And it was very obvious to me that there was something larger going on, and there was some other kind of love that she was pulling from, some kind of other example, and that was Jesus. And so that's the moment where I really came to know him and his love. So back to our conversation, Pastor Garry was then asked if we'd ever been baptized. And I said, "Yeah, twice." And he was like, "Really?" And I said, "Yeah, I grew up in both the Methodist and the Catholic Church for, since I was born through my teenage years, and I'd been baptized in both churches, but all before I was 1 year old." And Pastor Garry said something that made a heck of a lot of sense to me, was that, baptism should be about your own free will. You had an experience that changed you and made you a Christian, not something that it was part of it was the motions. It was the motions of those churches to have infants baptized, whether they knew Jesus or not. So then he asked her, "Are you ready to be baptized?" And this was a year and a half ago or something like that, and I had to be honest, and I said no, because I didn't feel like I was at that same point that I talked about my junior year in high school. So over that time, through a lot of conversations with Pastor Garry, my wife, and God, I feel like I'm finally there again. So, for everybody who, maybe was baptized going through the motions, or, feel like they're going through the motions now, get to the point where you feel like you could be baptized and you'd feel right about it, and you feel right with God, and, feel right with yourself.
All right, thanks, Tyler. It's always a joy to walk with people through their spiritual journey and to see this progression, and it really is a privilege to be in the waters again. So